trying to navigate this crazy thing called life? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Unraveling with Rain. Okay guys, welcome back. I've got a guest in the studio today, which I'm very excited about to dive into all the things that she does. This is Anna Erica Whitemarsh. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you own Rascal Rodeos, correct?
I can't say I own because you can't own a nonprofit.
Well,
but I am the founder and executive director of Rascal Rodeo, yes.
Very cool. So tell me a little bit about it.
Rascal Rodeo is a nonprofit organization that produces rodeo events for people with mental and physical disabilities of all ages throughout the Pacific Northwest. The purpose is just to show the special needs people that they're loved and cared for and accepted, help them discover unknown abilities. And it started as an opportunity for the special needs people to have an opportunity to be cowboys and cowgirls, you know, go and ride a horse. And then I discovered that, well, it's therapeutic for them, and it's more than being cowboys and cowgirls. It's discovering unknown abilities, really, and miracles happen. I mean, we've had participants say their first words after coming to our rodeos, and one participant, his first word was cowboy, and then the other one was horse. So, like an 8-year-old and a 30-year-old. So,
wow.
It's pretty incredible.
Have you seen, while I'm thinking of it, have you seen the documentary or read the book? I think it's Not Far From the Tree or Far From the Tree. It's basically this story about somebody who is researching children that are a little bit outside of the norm of what I would say just the normal construct of a family. The interesting thing about it is when you were talking about their first words, I thought about one scenario where they were talking about this mom who had a child who was autistic, and she actually didn't really get the opportunity to communicate with him much until he was like 7 through therapy, like years and years of therapy. So I can imagine that is just an amazing moment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it is. It's the one word to describe it is miraculous. I mean, there's no way that you can describe it or put it into words other than that. And people will ask, what is Rascal Rodeo? And sometimes I say, just go to rascalrodeo.org and watch the videos, and or on YouTube or whatever, just because it's easier to see what it is through the pictures and videos, and that sells what Rascal Rodeo is and all about.
Nice. So did you have a background with horses?
No, and that's kind of how it started. Is I wish that I did. I grew up a city kid. My mom was a teacher. My dad, recreation supervisor for City of Pasco. And so we grew up doing all kinds of sports, you know, basketball, volleyball, swimming, all that stuff that is offered like in schools and different recreation programs. And we loved it. It was our lives growing up. But then when I was, I think in middle school, I was in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, my brother got into rodeo. And he tried bull riding, and at the first high school rodeo that he went to, another cowboy got bucked off and became paralyzed because he landed wrong. And so my dad said, as long as you live under our roof, you cannot be a bull rider. And so my dad said, why don't you try something like steer wrestling? And so my brother found a ranch out north of Pasco, Les Patterson's place. And so during the summers, we spent like every day out there, and I used to babysit in trade of horse riding lessons. I did some barrel racing and pole bending, gaming type stuff. But I loved it and wanted to do it, but it was too difficult when you don't own your own horse and live out in the country and have your truck and trailer and that kind of thing to be able to haul. So I borrowed as many people's horses as I could, and but I had the desire to be a cowgirl, and I didn't really get to fulfill that desire. And so I can relate to those that don't get that opportunity to be on horseback and that kind of thing. So I think part of the reason I wanted to do Rascal Rodeo was part of that.
Nice. So this actually started out as a senior project, right?
Yes.
Wow.
In 2001, we had to do senior projects in high school, and my brother actually ended up going to the National High School Finals Rodeo in Wyoming, and because he had won the state championship here.
Nice.
And so yeah, pretty good for a city kid.
Right.
But he worked hard on it, and I mean, those days, every day we were out there riding, and he was practicing, and I could probably teach steer wrestling just because I was out there so much and watching it and helping and everything.
I feel that way about wrestling because my brothers were wrestlers, and there's so many tournaments that I just had to sit, and I'm like, I know all the rules, I know all the
yes, and that's my brother did wrestling in high school to help him with steer wrestling.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, and a rodeo smells better than the wrestling room, actually.
Really?
The wrestling, the gyms, they stink. So I can get off track. Senior project. Yeah, we had to do senior projects to graduate high school, and I had heard of the Exceptional Rodeo at that National Finals Rodeo, and I thought, man, what is that? That's really cool. But I didn't get to see it. I don't know how I missed it, but I didn't get to see it, and so I looked online and just kind of got ideas of what takes place and read articles about it, and so I said, this is what I want to do for my senior project, and okay, and so I had to write a paper and put it together, and we did it at the local fair here in August, and 4 participants and about 20 volunteers came, and I Ranch and Home sponsored it back then, and reached out to different people. I think we did offer pizza
that gets volunteers.
All the participants. So we had a pizza party afterwards, and all 3 television news stations were there, did interviews, and the Tri-City Herald, they did a front page newspaper article. The picture took up like 3/4 of the front page.
Nice.
I knew back then that was something that I needed to
kind of sparked.
Yep. And I was nominated for an award back then from Mr. Morgan, our high school principal, and it was just well received and lots of media attention, and the participants had so much fun. The volunteers had just as much fun, if not more fun, and so I knew that I needed to do something with that. But how do you do it, and what do you do? And with my sports, I ended up going off to college on a sports scholarship, and
which sport?
I did volleyball, and I was a thrower in track.
Cool.
So I went to school in Portland, and I hated it. I hated college. I almost didn't graduate high school, and I had what they say back then was the best senior project that they'd ever seen. But I hated homework. I hated school. The only thing that kept me going was sports.
Yeah.
And the only thing that got me to college was sports, too. Yeah. And somehow I got a business degree. And even my senior year of college, I was sitting there probably on MySpace, because that's what we had back then. Yep. And not to date me too much, I guess, but the word Rascal Rodeo just popped into my head, and during all 4 years of college, I thought, okay, I need to be doing this. You know, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I need to do this. Yeah. And Rascal Rodeo just popped in my head, and I thought, oh my gosh, Little Rascals, like the movie. Yeah. The special needs people are like little rascals. They're so cute. They're so fun. They're so friendly. And so that's where the name came from. Nice. And
it's an adorable name.
Yeah. Thanks.
It's very catchy.
Yeah. So people try to say, "Oh, Little Rascals," and no, we're not little, because we're all ages. You know. Right. So, then.
So then you graduated, but you didn't jump right into this project? There was a time span where you kind of put it on the back burner?
Well, I came home and tried to be like everybody else and do what people tell you to need to do, and use your... Yeah, exactly. Gotta use your college degree and go get a degree and all that crap. Yep. But, I got a good job out at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, and I was in a cubicle, and I hated it, and... You could tell the people that a lot of the people I worked with didn't enjoy their job either, because they were miserable, and they tried to make other people's lives miserable, including mine. Yeah. And so after I think 3 years, I got laid off when the economy started to tank, and I remember I drove home that day with the windows down, like praising the Lord, because I was so excited to be out of there, and I didn't never have to go back. Yeah. And I mean, I was so relieved because I was just like, every morning I'd walk in there and just want to quit, you know, and to put up with the verbal abuse and emotional abuse from those people out there that were just miserable. And it was depressing. So I was so thankful to be out of there. But that brought on a lot of hardships, and my lease on my condo happened to be up, and so I was flown down to California for a job interview that same month, I think it was. And I went down there like, okay, HR will be in contact with you. They're going to hire you. We're going to hire you type thing. And then, wait to hear from us, they said. So I ended up moving my stuff into storage, moved into my parents' house with a suitcase packed because I thought I wouldn't be there for too long. And 6 weeks later, I find out that I didn't get that job. So then, and it would have been my dream job, I thought, my dream real job that would have just put me right into work and good pay and all that stuff.
The universe was like, knock, knock.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So then, I think it was 2 years I spent at my parents' house, 3 years, and applying for 30 jobs a week.
Jeez.
And thankfully I was able to get unemployment and be able to keep up on my student loans.
Sure.
But I mean, literally 30 jobs a week I was applying for, and I would go into interviews and they would come in and say, okay, yeah, you're hired. HR will be in contact with you. One job, it was a sales position, and the gal said, well, you don't have any sales experience. And by that time we had done a couple more rodeos and had to get sponsors, and so I had to sell Rascal Rodeo to get sponsors, is what I kind of tried to make myself look appealing to this manager. And she had me take a sales test, and I thought, oh, this is going to be dumb, I'm going to bomb it. And she called me after I took it, and she goes, Anarka, who took this test for you? And I said, I did. Why? She goes, I need to talk to you, can you come in? So I go into her office, and I scored 98%, the highest that anybody had ever scored in that entire company, and it's a nationwide company.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, yeah, okay. She still didn't hire me.
What?
Yeah.
It's just incredible to me.
Yeah. And so, and my mom even asked, she goes, what are you saying to these people in this interview? And I said, I don't know. I mean, because all these places, oh yeah, okay, you'll get hired. Yeah, we love you. Your resume, the place that you have to go to after you get laid off for the hiring, like the state agency.
Yes.
Unemployment office.
Yeah, resource
center. Yeah. So they used my resume as an example for other people. And I'm like, you don't want to use that.
Oh my gosh.
So it was crazy. But that's my faith is strong in the Lord, and I believe that He is the reason that all of this has happened, and I'm living my God-given calling and purpose in life. And my mom and dad ended up saying, you need to get a real job, because my mom like literally thought I was jinxing myself or like telling these managers or skipping out on the interviews or something. I don't know.
Right.
She told me the end of November, she goes, you need to be out by January 1st or have a real job. And so I moved out the week of Christmas, and I cleaned houses and babysat and cleaned some offices, and I never skipped a student loan payment.
Oh, those student loans, man. I
know. They're ridiculous. Oh. $700 a month.
Good gravy.
And I don't even have that many. So, I was thankful I never missed a payment. During that same years when we won the truck from Toyota in the nationwide contest. Yeah. Toyota had a program, 100 Cars for Good. They did it for only 3 years, and we won on the 3rd year. And there's, so many days of voting, and there's 5 nonprofits that you can vote for in that day, and you have 2 votes to use. And so November 13th of 2014, I think it was, we won. We were one of the top 2 organizations in the whole nation to win a truck that day.
Do you think that was another little nudge saying, okay, this is where you need to be?
Yeah, by that
We're
time.
providing for you.
Yes.
Here you are.
Yeah, because, and let me back up, when I lived at my parents' house, I didn't have a job, I didn't own a car. The transmission went out in my car for the second time. It wasn't worth fixing. The only thing to my name was $40,000 in student loans. Let's see what else. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a car. I lived in my parents' house and student loans. Right? Yeah. So, and 27 years old. Yeah, that sounds like a great life, you know. And I remember telling my parents, and it'll choke me up, but I had moved out of my parents' house at that time, and we had won the track by then, and I told them, because I mean my parents were constantly telling me about jobs, and there was a job at the Kennewick Recreation Office, which I grew up lifeguarding, so they knew who I was. They knew who my family was because my dad did the job in Pasco. And my dad was like, you need to go apply for this job, like shoo in, like call Kay up and apply or whatever. Right. And I told him, I said, I don't think I'll have another job. I don't think I'll have another real job again in my life. And my parents have a split level home, and my dad was going up these stairs and my mom was coming up these stairs, and I was standing here, and my dad just turned around and looked at me. And my mom goes, okay, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Amen. And I left. And that night I laid in bed, and tears rolled down into my ears. And I said, God, I'll do whatever it takes to make this happen. And that next morning, I got a phone call from a random guy, and he said, hey, I think you should write a book. And I said, I don't have anything to say, which obviously I have a lot to say because I just keep talking. But he asked me a couple questions, and he goes, Anarcha, now tell me, you haven't stopped talking for 45 minutes. You don't have anything to say? So I started the book however long ago and got 6 chapters in, and then I haven't wrote anymore. But
it's in the works, though.
Yeah, I need to get back onto that because there's a lot to share.
I'm working on one myself, and it can be, there's sticking points for sure when writing.
Yeah, it's hard to write about your life. If I could write about your life, it'd be, maybe we should write each other's books.
Well, you look over my stuff, I'll look over your stuff. Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot easier. And it's kind of, what do you share and how do you say it? So
yeah, definitely.
It's tough.
Yeah. So then, when did you fully jump into Rascal Rodeo? Like, you just decided, this is it, this is what I'm doing, and then moved?
Yeah, it was 2016, and I had been cleaning houses. I had gone to Colorado to visit my brother and his family, and I was going to be there for 2 weeks. And my sister-in-law, her grandpa, had some health issues, and so I called the people that I was house cleaning for, and I said, hey, I'm going to be here a little bit longer to help with my nephew while my sister-in-law takes care of her grandpa. And I didn't get good responses from that because the houses were too dirty and they couldn't clean their own house or something, I don't know. And it just made me mad that they expected me to be there. You know, they depended on me so much, I guess, and how rude they were about it. Yeah. And then to hear that they started spreading lies about me and that kind of, and it's like, what? Yeah. That's a lot different than you buying me roses every other week and, you know, sponsoring Rascal Rodeo and all this stuff. So I just said, I'm done. I'm going back there and I'm not going to clean anybody else's house. I was sick and tired of it. You get to the point where you don't want to clean your own house.
I can imagine.
And by that time I did have a place to live, you know, I wasn't at my mom's anymore.
Right.
But, and so that I was just like, I'm done. And I went to the board, the Rascal Rodeo board, and I said, hey, I need some money, you know, and there's money in the bank account sitting there. Let's get something going. Yeah. And so,
how many rodeos were you guys doing at that time?
I think right around 10. Okay. 10 a year. And so they said, yeah, okay, we'll pay you this much. And it wasn't, I mean, it was barely enough to survive off of. And it's amazing how little you can survive off of. So thankfully I didn't have a whole lot of expenses because I drove a truck that was owned by Rascal Rodeo, you know, and so it wasn't like I had a car payment, and the student loans was just about my biggest expense. And
sure.
So 2017 was the first year that I actually got like a monthly salary and a somewhat respectable monthly salary. But like I tried to go apply for a home loan last year, and the guy was like, you need to work another year because they're not going to give you anything. And I feel like I'm so rich because I have money in the bank, you know, but so yeah, the last 2 years I've been able to live comfortably.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you are where you are.
Me too. I'm very thankful. It's not easy. It's not always fun, and it's tiring and hard to separate work from life and have a different life outside of it. But
I've noticed that as well. It's hard to set boundaries sometimes when you're so close to what you do.
Yeah, especially when your office is in your home too. And so, and you have a toddler, you know all about that.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's tough. And sometimes I think, gosh, it would be, not that working at Winco wouldn't be stressful at times, but I love going to Winco. I grocery shop there all the time. And I think, gosh, I would love to be a checker at Winco. You get to talk to all these people. You get to see what people buy. I think it would be interesting. And then you go home at night or whatever, you know, and you don't have, you know, all these people to email back and call back and, you know, just kind of leave your responsibilities at work, hopefully. But
but then you'd miss that spark.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. And those moments like you're talking about when we first began with the people that come in and their moments, I'm sure. Right,
exactly. And that's, I think, why so many people were just so miserable out at my good government job. You know, they weren't living the lives that they were supposed to be living. I think everybody's created for a purpose in life, and if you're not living that purpose, you're not going to be as happy as you can be and
I agree with
have that true joy and peace about life. And no, it's not always, you know, super easy and fun, but it's worth it. That's the work that I do is worth it. So I'm very thankful that that God chose me to do this. That's for sure.
Nice. So you guys are up to 16 rodeos now.
Yes.
A year in Washington, Idaho, and Oregon, correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's busy. We had and people. I would get people asking me, oh, well, what do you do when you're not at a rodeo? I'm like, well, you know nothing about business, first of all. Because
what am I not doing?
Yeah. I'm not vacationing, that's for sure. But a nonprofit is a business, and you have to treat it as a business. And I have really discovered that the last few years. Well, probably in the last year, really, I've discovered that mostly. But our rodeos start the beginning of January and go through the end of September. And in the month, let's see, July and August, we have like 10 rodeos in 13 weeks, plus 5 parades that we do. And so you pretty much just leave the trailer hooked up and
no kidding.
be ready to go. But we have it down. The volunteers are awesome that help, and we have it down pretty good, and a trailer that's stocked with everything that we need. And so when I get home from a rodeo, I restock the trailer with, you know, the new shirts and badges and all the stuff that we give out to the participants, and ready to roll again. So
nice.
We have it down pretty good.
Sweet. What do you think is like the hardest part of the nonprofit aspect? I mean, do you guys get pretty consistent volunteers? Or
yeah, the volunteer thing is that's pretty good. With what we do, people come volunteer because they have a love and passion for horses and animals, or for special needs people. So we're not usually short on volunteers. We do get a good base of that. I would say it's the business side of it. 9 years ago when I did the paperwork to become a 501c3, it was next to impossible. Maybe I just wasn't looking in the right spots or something, but it was just about impossible to find people that could answer questions about nonprofit work. I would go to the state secretary and, well, what about this and that and that? And you get a different answer from a phone call or an email, depending on who you talk to. No matter who you call, you know, if it's a lawyer, it's a, so I learned quick, you get everything in writing, because you talk to a lawyer and they say this thing. If you talk to a CPA, you get another answer. And you talk to a different lawyer and you get a different answer. So figuring out how to run a nonprofit and finding those resources. I recently went to a conference in Yakima that was put on by the state, and this gal had put it on, and in these 6 hours that we were there, I learned more about the dynamics of a nonprofit and how you should be building it and what you should be doing, and than any of these other big conferences that I've gone to.
Really?
And so she's she's like my hero right now.
She's your guru.
Yes. So and Carrie Anderson, she's in Coeur d'Alene, and so that really. And I've had several people come to me and say, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I show them our paperwork that we did to become, our 1099 to become a nonprofit organization. And then you get other people that are already established as nonprofits, and they ask me why I do that, or I can't believe you share your paperwork. Why? I don't have anything to hide.
Yeah.
And for me, nonprofits shouldn't be a competitive thing. There's people out there. This person is going to donate to save the dogs. This person's going to donate to save the babies. This person's going to donate to save the horses. That this is going to feed the people. There's money. There's a ton of money out there for nonprofit organizations. It's a matter of finding that money and getting into that niche, or whoever it is, that organization. But it's not a competition. And we've had organizations say, oh, you work with them, well, we can't work with you then because we do the same thing. We do the same thing. There's enough people that we need to reach that we can all work together, you know?
That's interesting. I wouldn't think that would be the way it is in nonprofit.
I think those people are the ones that are doing it for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
And you can tell those people pretty quick.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But it's frustrating because of getting... Even we do an annual event, the Honky Tonk Hoedown, and getting your liquor control or liquor license for the event. The venue tells you one thing, the liquor board tells you another. The liquor license officer, or whatever his title is, and it's like, oh my gosh, people. So figuring it all out. I mean, there's a lot of aspects to a nonprofit organization, to any organization.
Sure.
And being able to figure out of what is right and wrong, and what you just have to go with what you believe is right. And I know that what we do, I know that there's nobody stealing money or spending money the wrong ways in my organization, and if somebody wants to see the books, go for it. I mean, all organizations, their information's online anyway through the IRS. So I don't know, it's interesting.
So it sounds like if you get the paperwork right, the rest is pretty smooth.
Well, what do you mean is the rest? There's a lot to that rest.
Running the organization itself. I mean, of course, there's the aspect of putting people in the right places and all that stuff as well.
We have it down to a science as far as day of rodeo, and and how we run that.
Beautiful.
But and that's huge because of the volunteers that show up, and we have volunteers that bring horses that. Put horses in a truck and trailer and drive them to the rodeo grounds or wherever we're at, and that takes time and money and energy, and horses are expensive. I don't even own a horse, and I depend on volunteers to do that for us. But for me, I did not think that I had visions, when I lived at my parents' house and I was miserable, when I was at North P&L, whatever, of what Rascal Rodeo could be. And I never, I envisioned it this great big thing and reaching a lot of people, but I didn't really expect it to blow up kind of as fast as it did, I guess, and didn't realize all the different aspects of a nonprofit. And so we are working, I didn't write a business plan. I didn't write a bit. And how many business plans did I put together in college, because I was a business major, you know?
Right.
And I didn't put a business plan together because I was just going to do a rodeo and that kind of thing. And,
right.
you know, so that's what we're working on is a strategic plan, I guess, is what we should be working on.
Right.
And,
stay with your momentum.
Yeah. So, and that's, fail to plan is a plan to fail. And that's, I have been working really hard on trying to plan out things and how do you, I mean, there is no other nonprofit organization in the United States that does what we do. And there's 2 other organizations that I know of that there's rodeo committees, like Pendleton Roundup has a children's rodeo, and that's an exceptional rodeo that does it for just kids, but they do it once a year on their rodeo grounds. There's organization in California and Arizona, both who I've talked to, and they do an exceptional rodeo once a year. So we're the only nonprofit in the whole United States
we're
that
gonna
does.
do 16.
Yeah, yeah. So,
and see how far we can take this.
Right, and so there's, who do you go to for help?
Gosh.
You know, a yoga studio can go to another yoga studio and say, how do you do this? But how do we this year we started doing online registration is required for many reasons. And
I'm assuming that's a much more streamlined way of doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with doing no registration required for the last 8 years, it's hard to get people to change.
Yeah.
But so the rodeo in last week, I guess it was pretty nerve-wracking for me. Because, you know, I mean, we just had lots of changes to it. And so it was crazy, but it was fine. It was, yeah, people, 98% of the people are just grateful that they have the opportunity to, you know, bring their participant and be cowboys and cowgirls.
Yeah.
So those 98% outweigh the 2% that get feisty with you.
Right. Well, man, sounds like you're just on you're leading the pack.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's, I mean, it's a good thing that I'm redheaded and hard-headed.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to many people.
Well, then you're right where you need to be.
Exactly. And that's, I mean, honestly, I truly believe that it's a God-given calling, and to start a nonprofit with nothing to your name, you know, and then you win what you need, you know, win a $45,000 truck. Who wins a truck?
Oh, man.
And then, you know, people give you money and people come and volunteer. And I was telling one of our sponsors last night at dinner that we received our 3rd ever check of $5,000. Which $5,000 is a lot of money. The amount of work and the amount of people that we serve, $5,000 is not that much. We had 800 participants last year.
Wow.
And so 3 checks, $5,000 this is our 9th year. And so every other donation has been less than that. So that's how little money we use to put on this organization.
Serve so many people.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and that's, I mean, yeah, we could absolutely use more money, you know, have an office built, you know, have our own office, have even a second rig of items going to 2 different rodeos on the same day. And this year we'll probably have a rodeo on a Friday and a Saturday, and one in Idaho and one in Washington. So,
I don't doubt that the resources won't show up.
Right.
Yeah. They'll show up.
Yeah, at the perfect time.
Yep.
I think we haven't gotten any bigger than we are now because I have failed to plan. So I need to get my ducks in a row and get everything squared away, and then I think we'll be able to take off from there.
Awesome.
So, one of the things I was asked to record my aha moment for Mutual of Omaha, and I didn't know anything about it, and someone called me and said, hey, you should go do this. And so I had to drive to Walla Walla the day before I was leaving to go to Linden, which with traffic is about an 8-hour drive. It's up by Bellingham for one of our rodeos. And So I went, and it's this Airstream, and it was like 108 degrees that day. It was hotter than heck. And it was out on the asphalt downtown Walla Walla, like, and they couldn't have the air conditioning running when we were recording. And anyway, at first I said,
I totally understand.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I don't have an aha moment. Like, I don't know. I don't have time for this. Like, no.
Yeah.
And they convinced me to do it. And so my aha moment was about Robert, who, 30 years old, confined to a wheelchair, has cerebral palsy, came to the rodeo with his care provider, and she was in tears, and I went, as we were lifting him out of his wheelchair onto the back of the horse, and she was in tears, and so I went over to her, and I put my arm around her, and I said, it's okay, and I started crying, because I cry easily, and if somebody else is crying, then I'm crying too, right. No matter what they're crying about. And I said, he's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And she goes, no, I've never seen him so happy. And so then she emailed me, and the smiles on all of the participants' faces are just amazing. But she emailed me later that night, and she goes, I've never heard Robert say a word in 14 years of being his care provider. And tonight he said his first word, and that word was horse. So it's like, whoa. So that was my aha moment that turned into a nationwide television commercial and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm glad I went and did my aha moment, because then that brought in people calling us from Florida and Texas and Chicago and just all over the place. And it's here's another thing that's just worked out perfectly. My name's Ann Erica. The only one in the U.S., probably in the world.
Probably.
And the only way people could track down anything from that aha moment is searching Ann Erica, because that's all that showed up on the screen. And Rascal Rodeo wasn't mentioned in it, nothing like that. And so, because I asked people, I said, how did you find me? And they said, well, we just searched for Ann Erica. And so I was telling my grandma that, and she said, well, yeah, it's like Oprah and Cher.
Right? I know when I first... when you were first mentioned as far as who people want to see next, I was like, Ann Erica? I've never heard anybody named Ann Erica before.
I know. And but, people are like, what? Aunt Erica? America? Antarctica? No, Ann Erica.
Yeah, with a name like Rain, spelled the way it is, I totally get that.
Yeah,
totally.
Exactly. So, praise the Lord that my parents couldn't decide on Ann or Erica, and they gave me both names.
Right.
Because people can find me really easily.
That's crazy.
But another story, Rascal Rodeo, Jacob, he started coming to our rodeos, I think, when he was 7 years old, has autism, and didn't want anything to do with the horses that year, didn't want to ride a horse, anything like that. We have miniature horses that come that are as big as some people's dogs. And so there's a series of photographs of him like kissing the miniature horses goodbye that day. And so then the next year he comes in, and he wanted to make sure he rode every single horse. And he was quoted in the Tri-City Herald as saying, I thought I was going to take a horse home with me today. And his parents, I had his dad as a middle school PE teacher and his mom as a teacher at Southridge. And so they're not cowboy people at all. And so then he kept coming. The next time he came, he came running in before his parents even were out of their car, I think. And I said, hey, Jacob, how are you doing? And he goes, hi, I'm Jacob Sarver, world champion horse rider, and I'm here to ride all your horses. And I said, okay, Jacob, do you want to be partnered with a bull rider or a rodeo queen? And I'm thinking he's going to say bull rider, because...
Sure.
You know, what little boy wants to, I don't know. I just thought a bull rider. And he goes, a queen. And so I went to grab a queen and match him up. And he goes, no, that one. And he handpicked Maggie Little. And so then they were partnered up, volunteer and participant, for like 3 or 4 different rodeos, I think. And then Lori ended up calling me and saying, Maggie wants to gift us her childhood horse. What do we do? Where do we put it? So I put it out on Facebook. We need, somewhere to put this horse. And Sarah Madrell, who was a volunteer at the original, before it was Rascal Rodeo in 2001, said, yeah, I can have him come here. So, and this is like 5 years later, I think it is. And Jacob had Benny out at Sarah's, who Sarah gave him horse riding lessons. He joined Pony Club, and end of year awards, cleaned house. He got all these trophies, and now he owns 2 horses. He brings at least one of those horses to Rascal Rodeo as a volunteer. So somebody that didn't want anything to do with Rascal Rodeo, with horses, was too overwhelmed by everything going on in the arena to being a volunteer and competing on horseback. So it's not just me, it's a collaboration of everybody that puts in work, writes a check for us, or brings their horses to the events. So it's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there's several other participants that have now turned volunteer. And Garrett Osman, our legendary cowboy, self-proclaimed legendary cowboy. He got off a horse one time and said, "I'm a legendary cowboy." And if he's at the rodeo, he's making sure everybody has a helmet before they get on a horse.
It's life-changing.
So it is. It is. And that's not even just for the participants, but for the volunteers too. We've had volunteers come that had never worked with people with special needs before and change their profession to work with special needs people.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's
I'm
not
just
me.
Like in awe. I'm like, wow, that's so crazy.
It's amazing. So now you can see why I'm very thankful that this is what I get to do.
Definitely.
No matter the amount of work.
Definitely. Well, thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm blessed, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, and thank you for coming and sharing your story with me today.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much for listening. If you would like to help support Unraveling with Rain, go to patreon.com/unravelingwithrain. When you become a patron, you receive bonus content such as behind-the-scenes footage, along with other special content that you won't be able to find anywhere else. Music for Unraveling with Rain was provided by Barefoot Randy.